Okay, well, good evening and happy Earth Day, everyone. I'm Mark Pinto, Adult Services Director at Phoenixville Public Library, welcoming you to the latest presentation in the Community Gardening Around the Village series. And a hearty thank you to our partner organizations, Phoenixville Communities That Care, Phoenixville Recreation Department, Phoenixville Area Transition Living Landscape, Penn State Extension, Camp Hill, Kimberton Hills, Phoenixville Hospital, Trellis for Tomorrow, Chester County Food Bank, and Steeltown Village. Our program tonight is the Earth Day Pledge, bite-sized commitments you can make to our planet that will make a big difference. And our presenter tonight is David Ryle of Phoenixville's Trellis for Tomorrow. He's also an organic farmer and a food justice advocate with a background in ministry and social justice. For the last 15 years, he's been working with others to support a healthier world and a thriving planet. David, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. And I want to say thank you to Senator Comita for promoting this event. We would have loved to have her, but I know that she's here in spirit. And thank you to everyone who is joining us tonight for this presentation. My boss is in the audience, so please try to make me look good. My job is on the line. Hopefully not. I'm just kidding. We'll see. But obviously, as Mark just said, this is Earth Day, so happy Earth Day from me to you. It's a very special day. There's lots of opportunities for us to do things to honor the earth that we live on. And even though we're kind of focusing on gardening, I saw this beautiful image of the colors kind of changing over this incredible landscape. And I couldn't just help but to take a minute and appreciate what a beautiful place we get to live. And, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about food today. As you can see here, it's the Earth Day Challenge or the Earth Day Pledge, bite-sized commitments you can make to our planet that will make a big difference. It's funny that this is called bite-sized because that's quite a mouthful for a title. But you know, whenever I get a chance to eat some food, one of the things that kind of goes through my head is, man, it just didn't have to be this good. You know, there's just so much wonderful stuff on this incredible planet we get to live on. And there are some things that we can do, some simple commitments that we can make that will make a big difference for the planet that we're sharing together during this incredible lifetime. So we're going to spend some time talking about some of these different commitments that we can make that will make a big difference. And the reality is that there's small changes that we can make in our daily lives, especially around food, that have potential to have a real impact, a real significant change in our world. These little commitments can create big opportunities for us to improve our relationships with food, our own bodies, our community, and the living systems that support us. It has a big impact in a lot of different directions. As Mark said, I have had a pretty diverse background in my life, partly in ministry, partly in social justice. About 15 years ago, I started to get into organic gardening in North Philadelphia, where I was working with recovering addicts for several years. And that launched me into a deep exploration of organic agriculture for the last 12 or 13 years. So I've worked on large-scale organic operations. My wife and I have an organic farm outside of Pottstown, where we grow our own crops, our own food, as well as operate an organic tea company called Steep of Faith. So I do a lot of stuff around food, but this connection that I've had with the land and where our food comes from and what it means to be about food led me to my work with Trellis for Tomorrow, which Mark said a few words about. Trellis for Tomorrow is an incredible Phoenixville-based nonprofit organization that's really dedicated and committed to building these connections and trying to cultivate resilience and compassion in our community so that we can have a more sustainable world together. And we get to work with people of all ages around our food and where our food comes from and how we relate to our environment. So basically we use parks, preserves, and gardens as living classrooms to engage with people of all ages to have a conversation about where our food comes from and why it matters. So we were so thrilled to be approached by Mark and the library and Pat and all of the other organizations that are connected to this. So thank you again for having us. And we're going to talk about some really simple, we're going to talk about 5 bite-sized commitments that we can make that will have this big impact on the world that we share. So the first bite-sized commitment is to eat regional. We have become all too accustomed to having lots of food from all over the planet all the time, regardless of what time of year it is. We're very accustomed to having lots of food from everywhere. But there's some real benefits to eating regional. So what do I mean by that? Every region has food that is native to it or grows well in it, and food that doesn't. I get asked still at farmers markets and engaging with people, can you grow bananas? Can you grow lemons? Can you grow limes? Now, some people have made some advances in these areas, but a lot of times there are foods that are native to this area or grow well in this area, and eating regionally is a great way that you can make a commitment that has an impact on our planet. The reality is that eating foods that originate from and are appropriate to our region comes with a lot of different benefits. First and foremost, nutrients aren't lost in transit. So on average, I would ask you to guess, but I won't waste your time. How many miles do you think on average our food travels before it's on our plate? And I'll give you a second to think about it, but I'll just tell you it's about 1,500 miles on average. 1,500 miles our food travels before it reaches our plate. Now that's a huge impact, not just the fact that it's traveling lots of miles and there's a lot of carbon going into the air just to get that food to us from wherever it was grown, but there's a total disconnect from where our food was grown and us eating it. So we don't really understand where did this food come from. There might be a sticker on it that says Costa Rica or Panama or California or wherever, but we've become disconnected from where our food comes from. But a big impact beyond the carbon is that nutrients are lost in transit when they have to be harvested when they're unripe. Every hour that passes that food is in transit, nutrients are being lost. So when you're eating regionally, you're actually benefiting from getting more nutrients in your diet. Obviously, as I said, it has a much smaller impact on the environment when you focus on eating regionally. So just making this one small choice to eat more foods from your region can have a big impact on the environment. And then you're supporting our local economy. So you're keeping the money in a region and you're investing in making sure that people in our region are growing food for the region. And that has a big impact as well. So the first bite-sized commitment is eating regional. And I just want to take a second to talk about the incredible impact of far off asparagus and berries. This is just a couple examples. I am a big advocate for organic food and for sustainable food, but even organic asparagus or organic berries that are coming from a distance have an incredible, terrible impact on the environment. And the reason that that's true is because berries and asparagus have a very, very short shelf life. They don't transit well. So in order to get them from point A to point B, they have to be flown. They can't be transited by semi-trailer or by train or by boat. They have to be flown from wherever they were harvested to wherever they're being sold. So if you think about even buying organic berries from a distance, every time you're doing that, you're investing some money and your support in something that has had a much more significant impact on the environment than something that would be grown locally. So another reason to consider what region your food is coming from is, does it have to be transmitted to you by plane, train, or automobile? It's a something to consider, and all the more reason to focus on regional. The second bite-sized commitment, number 2, is to eat seasonal. So we've talked about eating regional. Now we're going to talk about eating seasonal. There is a lot of things, as I said, we're pretty accustomed to seeing every fruit and vegetable that we could ever want, always available all year round. But the reality is that these things grow during specific times of the year and under ideal conditions. And it's very similar to what we were talking about with nutrients being lost in transit. when we focus on eating seasonally, we honor what's available when it's available. And this is really contrary to the culture that we live in, which is focused on convenience. And by focusing on eating seasonally, I think that we can have more nutrients in our diet. Food will taste better, but it also gives us an opportunity to practice patience and forego some of the convenience that we may have become accustomed to. And as I said, food just tastes better and is more nutritious when it's in season. Those nutrients aren't being lost through storage or through transit for having to travel lots of miles. So when we focus on eating seasonal, that might mean we've got to wait until those watermelons are in season, or when the apples are in season, or when the berries are in season. But personally, that gives me something to look forward to. Like, when are the local berries going to be ready? When is that local asparagus going to be ready? When are those morel mushrooms going to be ready? When are the ramps going to be ready? So these are like highlights in my calendar when I'm like, okay, it's almost here. We're about to get garlic scape season. If you've never grown hardneck garlic, hardneck garlic produces these things called scapes, and they're only available for like a 2-week window every May, June. And it's one of my favorite times in the year because garlic scapes are one of the best things in the world if you like garlic. Garlic is like the perfect antidote for an overactive social life. Eat a little bit of that, you're set. Nobody really wants to hang out with you. I'm just kidding. Anyways, the next bite-sized commitment. Bite-sized commitment number 3, and this one's hard for a lot of people. Meat on the side. Okay, meat on the side. This is a bite-sized commitment that we can make. Even if you're a meat lover, that's fine. I'm a meat lover, but I'm a meat on the side guy at this point in my life. And there's reasons why I've made this decision for myself. First of all, meat has a huge negative impact on the environment. It is extremely intensive to grow. It has a big impact on water, land, soil, and the air. So just producing meat at the scale that we do in our current food system is completely unsustainable. And when we make a regular habit of putting meat at the center of our plate, we are investing time, money, resources, and commitment to something that is in the long term not sustainable for our planet. So making a small shift in our food choices and saying, you know what, I'm going to do meat on the side, is a big thing that you can do that will have significant impact on our planet. Now, I keep running into this misconception that, well, where do you get your protein from if you're not eating meat? And the reality is that plants are absolutely packed with protein. There is a ton of protein to be found in the plant kingdom. And this misconception about protein being like meat being our source of protein, or milk being our source of vitamin D or iron, like, a lot of this is just the result of a generation of corporate propaganda around these things are the best way to get that into your diet, when in reality, plants have an incredible amount of protein in them if you know where to look. One small step that you can try is to do meatless Mondays. You'll be doing yourself, others, and the planet a big favor, but just take a day a week off and say, you know what? I'm not going to do meat on Mondays. I'm going to try something different. If you've never taken a step in the direction of a vegetable-based diet or a vegan-based diet, you are missing out. There are some incredible opportunities to try some amazing flavors, some amazing textures. It's getting better and better every year. The stuff people are coming up with, the flavors people are bringing out of these regional, local, seasonal foods is really, you're missing out if you're still doing meatloaf 7 days a week. So try something new and go meat on the side, even if it's just for a little bit. All right, bite-sized commitment. Number 4, invest in sustainability. Invest in sustainability. This is a beautiful photo. We've got some incredible photos from some of our youth in our Trellis programs. We've got kids that are going to be taking over gardens in Phoenixville, Spring City, Pottstown, all over the place this summer. We've got kids that are going to be starting gardens and managing businesses out of those gardens to get the food into the community. This photo comes to us from Soulfire Farm, just outside of Albany. It's a farm that I'm a big fan of. But there is a movement going on right now that is focused on sustainable farming and a more sustainable food system. And that's something that we really need to spend some time thinking about and recommitting ourselves to. So what am I talking about when I say invest in sustainability? And how is this a bite-sized commitment? Um, First of all, it has to be said that there's a lot of inequity in our current food system. And if you're unfamiliar with the situation in our food system, it is worth looking at. This disconnect between us and where our food comes from has led us to be relatively blind to what it takes to get food to us cheaply and available in quantity that we're used to. The reality is that there are unbelievable and tremendous harms being done to workers, animals, insects, and the soil, water, and air that we all depend on. And all of that is the result of a food system that is highly industrialized and focused on getting food to everybody cheaply. But we can make some different choices that can do something about that, which is why eating food and where and how you purchase it and who from is a political act. Eating food is a political act. So every time you make a food choice, you're making a decision that has an effect on the body politic, on other people, on the planet that we all share. So we have to think about those choices and not just think about it through the lens of convenience or preference. We've got to think about, what does this choice mean for myself, for my neighbors, and for the person I don't even know who picked it. The reality is that this bite-sized commitment is an investment. It means that you're going to have to make some choices about where you spend your money and how. The ultimate reality here is that you've got to decide to spend more to support what is right. Asking questions about how something was grown and where, by who, how they were treated. Was it done in a way that supports a healthy environment? Was it done in a way that doesn't cause harm to the insects? The insect population, they're guesstimating or estimating, has decreased by about 65 to 70% since 1985. That's the worldwide insect population has decreased by 65% since 1985. If the insect population goes, you can imagine a lot above it starts to collapse, because we rely on the insect population to pollinate everything that we eat. So making some choices to invest in sustainability in your food choices can make a big difference. And this brings us to bite-sized commitment number 5. Start growing in a new way. So all of us have an opportunity to grow in a new way. This is Andy Nolan. He's one of our champion farmers in the Food for All network of Trellis for Tomorrow. Trellis for Tomorrow supports over 22 different gardens throughout the region that are growing 35 to 40,000 pounds of organic produce every year. That food is getting directly provided to neighbors in need, and Andy is here at their garden at the Salvation Army Croc Center, which is about a half acre or a third of an acre, where they grow a lot of food every year. We don't have to grow on a massive scale to start growing in a new way, but it is a bite-sized commitment we can make to have an effect on our food, our body, our neighbors, and the world that we're sharing. So one of the best ways to fundamentally challenge and change your relationship with both food and our planet is to start growing your own food, or at least some of it. Okay, I'm going to say that again. One of the best ways to fundamentally challenge and change your relationship with both food and our planet is to start growing your own food, or at least some of it. That act of putting a seed or a seedling in the ground and caring for it and watching it grow and doing things to support its growth and to get it to fruition, to get it to bear fruit, is an incredible process. It's building a relationship that can change how you think about the food that is coming to you. Someone grows our food, and you can be that someone, and that can change the way that you interact with this world and with one another. Building a better relationship with your food and where it comes from through gardening can change your life for good. Literally, it certainly has for me. And it doesn't have to be this massive organic farm. It doesn't have to be a big garden. It can just be a small step towards having a better understanding of how to grow food, where it comes from, and it can start to change the way that you think about what you're doing. when it comes to food. Cultivating a connection with local growers and farmers can also help you grow in a new way. So what I mean by this is that there's a lot of local farms. We live in an incredible part of the country that as of yet has not been as adversely affected by climate change as other parts of our country and other parts of our world. And there are some people that believe that the Northeast is going to become something of a food producer for the greater region throughout our country, because we've been somewhat sheltered from the droughts that other regions are experiencing. So, you know, we are incredibly fortunate to live in an area where lots of things can be grown for the better part of the year. And I had an incredible opportunity to work as the manager for the Kimberton CSA. If you're not familiar with a CSA, that's a community supported agriculture model of farming. And that's basically where the community comes together with a farm and gives them capital upfront. They invest upfront in what that farm is doing. And in exchange for that investment, each CSA member, each community supported agriculture member, gets a share of what that farm produces over the course of the growing season. So you can invest up front in a CSA and get a return of weekly or biweekly supply of fruits and vegetables that are growing. And that is a form of connection, a form of relationship that you can establish that can dramatically change your health and the food system that we're all part of. These 5 commitments, these 5 changes are fundamentally taking steps, taking small bite-sized steps, if that's possible, to rethink what your relationship is with our food system. And if you rethink your relationship with the food system, and if we all start rethinking some of the ways that we interact with our food system, we can change our food system. And I've got to tell you, our food system needs to change. We need to change how we think about food. We need to change how we think about feeding our communities. If we make some of these small changes as individuals, if we make some of these small changes as families, if we make some of these small changes as a community, we can dramatically change the food system that we rely on to feed ourselves and to feed our world. And that's exactly the kind of change that we need if we're going to see the change that our world needs in order for us to survive long term and for us to leave something to our children. One of my colleagues at Trellis for Tomorrow earlier today, we were doing a toast to our host, which is a toast to our Mother Earth, this incredible place that we live. We were raising a glass to celebrate this life, this planet that we all share, as a opportunity to kick off our Spring of Hope, which is as a 1-month challenge for people to engage in some practices to reflect on their relationship with this planet. And my colleague Bob said this incredible quote, which is Native American wisdom that was passed down. It's that we do not inherit the earth from our parents, we borrow it from our children. So this resource, this place that we get to live, that is so generous, that is so abundant, that feeds us so well, is not ours. We are stewards of something that we are borrowing from future generations. And we can do better by them, we can do better by ourselves, and we can do better by this planet if we make some of these bite-sized commitments in our day-to-day life. So thank you so much for taking some time to listen to me, to reflect on some of these simple opportunities that we have. I really appreciate your time and your attention. And if you get a chance, check us out at Trellis for Tomorrow. We're doing a lot of work in the community and we continue to grow in new ways. And that's really what we're committed to, is helping our world grow in new ways. We'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to stop sharing here and give you guys a chance to ask any questions, or I guess leave, or I don't know. Here I am. I don't know what to say, but thank you very much.
Hope you don't leave yet. We still got plenty of time. Great presentation, Dave. Thanks so much. And I noticed in the chat, Jennifer from Trellis put some web addresses. Jennifer, if you're on, can you tell us more about those sites that you put in there?
Sure. They were just some resources to support some of the suggestions that David was making. So the first one is simply a guide from the USDA for seasonal produce. So if you're like me, I don't always know what is in season and what is not. Even though I work for Trellis, I still don't know those things. So this is a nice guide. I like it because it's very concise and it has bullet points, and I like bullet points. So that's good. And then the other one is a wonderful, wonderful website. If you haven't been to it, it's called PA Eat. And they promote and help you to find local food, but they also have fantastic recipes, especially recipes that are easy to make and quick for, you know, working parents and whatnot. So, but they also have, as I said, access to information about health and wellness, healthy food. And in this particular case, this one is about local food. So yeah, just thought that might be helpful for people.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone with a question or a comment for David or Jennifer?
Yes, Jane.
Jane, you're muted. You need to unmute
There.
yourself.
Yeah. David, you talked about the kids doing entrepreneurial kind of things. What kind of businesses do they build?
That's such a great question, Jane. I'm so glad you're asking that. Just a little bit of background. For years, Trellis has been working with underserved and at-risk youth in our region and in our communities. And we were basically bringing them out of their community to organic farms where we were engaging in some job training and exposing them to the natural world and kind of rebuilding this connection with where your food comes from. And a few years ago, we started asking this question: what if we stopped taking them out of their community to the farm and started taking the farm into their communities and to them? What would happen if we did that? And so we started working on a model where we started establishing organic gardens in the community where these kids were living. And we started using this as this living classroom to start teaching them some skills. But one of the most immediate things when you create a very productive organic garden is you get a lot of food coming out of the ground. So we said, okay, well, what are we going to do? And we started exploring with these young people, 13 to 18 years old, in our Youth Seed Enterprise program. You know, what do we do to get this food into the community? And we're really not interested in a charity model of engaging with the community. We're really interested in co-creating spaces that have a lasting impact to really shift the conversation away from handouts or whatever into like a real community solution to where our food comes from. So the kids started coming up with ideas of how are we going to get this food to people that want it. And so one of the first things they did in the first year was they created basically a subscription service of produce. So people signed up for a subscription of produce from the garden, and every week the kids would do a big harvest and they would bag it up and they would put the subscriptions together, and then they would deliver it to people's front doors. And at the end of the program, they asked the community members to pay what they could, pay what you will for what you got. And this is what we refer to as a dignified exchange model. So we're providing a service and you pay us what you can. You determine what you're going to pay for this. And that way, you know, some people want organic produce. Some people want nutrient-dense food in their diet, but they can't afford what Whole Foods and Jeff Bezos wants to charge for it, but they want access to it. They're willing to pay for it. They just can't pay whole food prices for it. So by having this shift, we're creating opportunities for people to engage and pay what they can for what they get. And the subscription model is just one that we've seen the kids do. We're looking at other ones like food stands or farmers market type models. Like how do we get this food to the people that want it? And beyond that, the kids are we're starting to daydream a little bit about the creation of value-added products. Can we make a ready-to-heat, ready-to-eat soup, or ready-to-heat, ready-to-eat sauce, or can we make something that sort of makes it easier for people to access this incredible food that the kids are growing? So there's a lot of opportunities around that.
Wow.
Dave, were you done, Jane?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you, Dolores.
I love the idea of the meatless Mondays, and with our Be Kind calendar that CTC puts out every month, I was thinking of how we could incorporate meatless Mondays and to educate our community through our calendar by saying every Monday, let's practice meatless Monday. But what I'm thinking is, I don't want to say that. Is there any recipes that you have that we can incorporate every Monday into the calendar? Because we wouldn't say meatless Mondays without like giving them
Right.
options of recipes. Let's come up with some recipes to feed them so they can say, I mean, pizza, I think of plain pizza, you know, they don't have meat with pizza, right? But that's the first thing that came to my mind. Pizza on Monday. Everybody can't have pizza on Monday. They don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Like give them some options of what they could do.
I love that. And I know that we're working with some of our youth participants to research a lot of different recipes that are seasonal and that are regional to provide people with resources. Like, what do I do with this fresh stuff that I just got out of the garden? Like, to give them those resources. But I love, Dolores, that idea. Like, let's figure something out to give people an alternative. Like, what can I do on Mondays that kind of that scratches that itch without using meat to do it? I think that there's, like I said, there are some incredible things going on right now in sort of meat on the side or non-meat options. So I think providing them with some sort of recipe would be a great way to encourage people to do it and give them a way to do it with joy.
I know
Yeah.
my guy, Rocco George, who owns Rocco's Pizza, he has pizza specials on Monday, very cheap.
Wow.
I could work with him, really like push him. I really support him. He supports CTC to really pump him up for saying, listen, we're going to do this, and, you know, work with him in any way that he can work with families to make it really reasonable if they buy two or something, you know what I'm saying? So I'd love to throw him in and bring him in as the business partner to say, okay, we could support a local business, but
That's right.
That's a great
I'm going to
idea.
try that myself. I mean, what I got from this today, I learned a lot. It was it was very interesting. I'm going to really challenge myself to kind of take a bite size on a few of these things that you have suggested. But I would love the community to get around that Be Kind calendar and say meatless Mondays, and here, this is what we have. So let's follow up. I don't want to take no more time.
Yeah.
But let's follow up with that and see how we can work together in building that into our Be Kind calendar.
And I would just say that, you know, I know that other communities have done this, but I just want to like piggyback on what you said in the partnering with the business, you know, people in the business of food, and say, let's get as many people on this bandwagon that have restaurants, that have businesses, and say, let's push Meatless Monday in Phoenixville. We want to get as many restaurants, as many
Love
food,
that.
like let's do this and let's really push this and say we want options at all of these restaurants for Meatless Monday. Like, you can still have it on your menu, but like, help us push it, you know, and give people ideas of what they can do that don't include meat. And I've seen communities do that. And I mean, it's like everywhere you go, it's like Meatless Monday, like, and it starts to become a part of the culture.
Not only that, we can put them on a calendar, like say, if George would do it this week and then another, you know, whoever, I could send out something from my end to businesses to kind of say, this is what we want to do. Will you be a part of it?
I love that.
But let's have a serious meeting about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
High five and
Steak.
let's get it going.
Okay.
Love that idea.
Okay.
There's a question that came through on the chat. How do you start researching where food is grown?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's a little bit of like, sometimes if you're lucky, depending on where you shop, and I would open the floor up to anybody else that have some tips or some insight on this, but sometimes depending on where you shop, the responsible purveyors of food will give you some indication of where it's from, where it was grown. And that can help you start to kind of make some choices. And as I think Jennifer referenced in the chat, you know, Kimberton Whole Foods is an incredible partner of Trellis for Tomorrow, an incredible community member, doing a lot of real good in the community. And that's a good example. Like, you go there and they'll tell you where everything came from, right next to the item of what it is. Sometimes it says it on the stickers, but when you don't have those options, that's when you got to start getting into a little bit of investigative detective work and sleuthing, and sort of asking the questions and not being satisfied. Well, I don't know where it came from. So it does, if you're not provided that information, it does take a little bit of work. You might ask them, you know, to take a look in the back and tell me, like, where did you source this from? We had a kid, I said, well, where's your food come from? She said, the store. I said, but where do they get it from? She said, they get it from the back. And that was it. Like, that was as far as the chain went, you know, like the store gets it from the back, that's it. So, you know, you got to go to the back sometimes to find out where did that come from. So I think that's part of it. But I mean, we really live in an interesting time. If you're not familiar with how our food system evolved, we are the descendants and inheritors of what is called the Green Revolution, which made it possible to feed an additional billion people in the 1960s and 70s. It saved continents from starvation, which is wonderful. But it also industrialized our entire food system and led to where we are now, which is the decimation of our natural environment. You know, 100 years ago, maybe a little bit more, everybody ate organic and everybody ate local because that's pretty much what was there. You were lucky if you could get your hands on something that was processed and refined. That was reserved for the people that could afford it. And now the entire narrative has been turned on its head. Organic and local is reserved for people that can afford it, and processed and refined is everywhere we look. And in a single generation, I feel it has created an environment where we have, in some cases, had to revert to become hunters and gatherers. We go into supermarkets and you've got to navigate this crazy space to try to hunt and find and gather the stuff that's actually any good for you, because we have so much processed food in front of us. So, you know, asking that question, like, where did this come from? Who made it? Where was it grown? There's not always an easy, straightforward answer, but they are the right questions. So, you know, I think it takes a little bit of work. It's either look at the sticker or look at the tag or ask questions and find people that source their products responsibly, if you can. I talked to Jennifer, my boss, quite a bit about this. Like, my food options are extremely limited in this landscape. There are a few places that I can go that I can really trust, and I rely heavily on sources that I know this is where it came from, this is when it came from there. If I really want to make these bite-sized commitments, it means I've got to alter some of the pathways that I use to get food. I'm not suggesting that everybody be that crazy about it, but if we want to make a difference, I think that's where it starts.
Hey, David, I'll just add to that two things. One, that a lot of times the choices that are better for the environment are also better for your body, you know, so it's really a double win for you to have fewer chemicals and to have things that travel. I think, David, you mentioned this, a shorter distance have a greater nutritional value. So, you know, and they require less preservatives, all of those things. So it is double benefit, you know, for that as well. And I think the other thing that I wanted to mention too is how important it is for us to speak up in our buying decisions. And so by simply asking, where is something sourced, and making it known that that piece of information is important to you and it's important to your buying decision, the more people that say that kind of thing to the store owners and the business owners in our communities, the more it's going to influence them. So Dolores, like, I just love your idea about trying to harness that, because I mean, one day a week of trying to focus on something local or something, you know, that's plant-based or whatever, and providing a special on your menu of those items, that kind of stuff can be really, really significant. And it's not small. You know, we're talking about creating a movement and moving something that, as David said, has taken a while to kind of create this new normal for us, and trying to shift that is going to take some time. But yeah, talking about it, asking the questions, really, really important in building awareness.
Hey, I even think about the kids in school.
Mm-hmm.
To get it into schools. I mean, if we started doing it and you know, they're getting it at home, they need to get it at school. I mean, it would be a conversation. I wouldn't be afraid of challenging the school to say, hey, this is an idea, Dr. Fegley. Hey, what, you know, would that be something that you would get behind us and work with us on? Why not? I think big, I don't think little. So I'm thinking about it from a perspective of community. But if we're going to do it in the community, why wouldn't we want our kids? It's easy to have pizza with no meat on it in school on Mondays. You know what I mean? Kids love pizza. You know, it could be done. It could be done. So when I think about it from the community, my mind goes right to, hey, what about school? Are they going to eat meat in school? Let's make the whole day in our community meatless. Okay, so I'm thinking it from school and to community. So I got it in my mind. When I get an idea, I go crazy with it.
I'll go with you to Dr. Fagley. We can do
Yeah,
that together.
I'm ready. I'm
tomorrow.
ready.
I'm
I'm
with you.
ready, honey. We got to look community. This program here. Community garden around the village. We are an awesome force. Okay. So guess what? We can do it. We can make it happen. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mark.
Right. Great enthusiasm, yes. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions, thoughts? This has been great. Lots of food for thought. Ha ha ha.
Oh, yes. I love it. I loved it.
Earth Day. Yeah. And David, thanks so much for presenting tonight.
Thank you, David.
Yes, wonderful. It's wonderful. Learned so
Yeah.
much.
Very good.
Thanks to all our partners in the series for making it possible and making it continue. This is our seventh presentation, I think, in the series, something like that. So,
October, November, December, January, February, March, April, 7th, right?
all right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a great ride. It's been great. So much.
And I look forward to sharing it widely. Thank you. Thank you.
And this video tonight will be on our YouTube channel, the library's YouTube channel, by early next week.
Terrific.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, so much. Really appreciate the time.
Hey, happy Earth Day.
Yes.
Happy Earth Day, everybody. Thanks for
All
joining
right.
us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, good
Bye.
night now. Bye-bye.